X-Men 97 Life Death Part 2. After a standalone episode, we had the rest of the story with Storm and Forge after that Jubilee storyline. And then we're going to find out a little bit about what's going on with Professor Xavier. What's that deal about? All right, let's get to this. All right, if I had a criticism thus far with the X-Men 97, it's one, it's geared way towards adults and away from kids. And then two, the pacing and some of the things that they're doing is kind of and this is kind of one of those things that we kind of get with that. It's still a great episode. It fits a great story arc. It's just I don't like the fact that it was split up the way it was and sort of like suspenseful part one, part two, but it's not really. So it's like we took a Jubilee story and stuck it over here. We took this Professor X story, we stuck it over here, and we have this big mutant massacre thing in the middle. That's kind of my biggest of issues right now. I want to hope and I want to bank on the fact that all the stakes in the previous episode are actually going to stick and matter, and this episode can matter as well. So let's get to more. So the episode jumps to stuff that's been in the X-Men animated series, the old version, not the stuff that's been going on. So we're going to find out what's happening with Lilandra and Professor Xavier. They think he's dead on Earth, so it's going to be interesting. Here we have a little shot with the Gladiator, the different things that are going on with the Empire, and of course we're going to cut to the big presentation that they're going to actually get married. He wears this sort of like cybernetic enhancement suit where he's able to walk around and function. And what was interesting right away from all of Lilandra's people is how bigoted they are towards everyone else. No one would ever be good enough. And then she has this sort of like romantic interlude with them. And it is interesting. It kind of, it's this sluggish romance backstory type thing, but it is nice to see what Xavier's future could have been, having this relation, how much he's willing to give up, how much she's willing to give up, those kinds of things. So it kind of moves there. And then before it cuts back to Earth and we see Forge. So we cut right back over to Storm and Forge. They're on their mission to get this magical flower thing. It's going to be the key to the cure for Forge. And she's basically just going to have to deal with that claustrophobia thing. So this is the setup for that really to kick off. But then we're going to cut right back over to the Shi'ar. The Shi'ar Empire have their big ceremony thing, this big confrontation. And is he willing to do this? And then when this is all basically happening, he decides he's going to show them who he really is. And he basically just becomes Professor Xavier. He kind of puts them in this school situation. It's very absurd in some ways, but it's pretty cool in others. And then we cut back, of course, to Storm. You know, can she do it or not? The adversary is, of course, talking smack to her. And she ends up manifesting her powers, which is really, really cool, except that there's just like this big, long gap before she actually returns to Forge. Like she just kind of flies around for a minute, which I thought was kind of a weird thing to do. And then when they get back to the home, there's this thing about the massacre. It's on television, and we cut back to Xavier, who has all these Shi'ars that are in their classroom settings. So it's just raise your hand, and then he's visited by like this image of Gambit, and there's like this sort of like this psychic connection to the fact that these are all these dead mutants. Very very powerful, very interesting. I will say again, not for kids. It's a lot of cool elements pulled from like a vast array of comic book and pieces of things. The Forge and Storm stuff, it's kind of like two or three pieces kind of spread out. And then there's like the Shi'ar thing, which has kind of been intermittent over the course of different years and different things. There's even like a Starjammers miniseries that kind of ties to the old school X-Men episode, but now we can kind of look at now. And then we have this, and I think a lot of folks here are going to be like, what's going to happen next with Gambit? Is he dead or not? What happened? So I won't touch on that here, but there is sort of like some stuff that we can look at here to what they could be tying in for Gambit in his future if you decide if they try to bring him back in a way. And basically, there's just the horrors of Professor Xavier. It's like I have to go back. I have to do something. And when we cut back to town, there's a little stinger, little tease right here at the end. It's not what we expect. It's the Trask situation, and it's Mr. Sinister, right? We already know what's happening here. All in all, still a good episode, a solid episode. The show has been very solid. I'm not going to say this is great or as great as some of the classic episodes from X-Men 92, but I think fans are probably generally very, very positive about the show. I'm enjoying it. Like I said, I'm left feeling the way I've talked about before. I think all the characters in this episode were done exceptionally well. I think all the connections between Xavier and Lilandra were spot on. Stuff with Forge and Storm were good. I think they really just kind of hit all the beats that they needed to kind of move to the next episode. So That's kind of it for me. Let me hear from you guys. I'll see you next time. I am Pops.
The most popular comic book in the world today is coming to life. Don't miss the premiere of X-Men Saturday, October 24th on Fox.
Surrender, mutant.
Give him the forecast.
Omega level threat detected.
The cards always be in my favor.
Hear me. Humanity's days are over.
Marvel Animation's X-Men 97, now streaming on Disney+. All new Hasbro product inspired by Marvel Animation's X-Men 97, now available at retailers nationwide.
To help them in their never-ending battle against the evil Decepticons, the Autobots create a new breed of robot, Dinobots.
Transformers, more than meets the eye. Dinobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. The Transformers.
The Decepticons are attacking! The Dinobots will get them! Can't beat the Dinobots!
Sold separately from Hasbro.